Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Everett. This knife is on loan from Nick Shabazz. He has been amazing helping my channel out. I want to thank him very much for this. He liked this knife. I might have a different opinion than Nick Shabazz, guys, so hang on to your britches. My name is Nehemiah, and today we're going to be looking at this piece of metal, the Spyderco Subvert. This is a collaboration. It was designed by Nati Amor. This is normally a custom knife that he sells. They're usually like completely blinged out, have tons of like mokume and Timascus and all kinds of stuff going on, and they're usually like really expensive. I mean, we're talking, $1,500 up to like $3,000, like really high end. So this profile is pretty much the same as those knives. It's just a production version that Spyderco is making. So definitely has some interesting origins, and it'll be fun to review it. First thing we're going to do is our good old-fashioned comparison here. We've got the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. So yeah, this knife is gigantic. It is huge. So to give you some measurements here, it's kind of hard to measure it, but we're talking like 4.25 inches in blade. Cutting edge is probably the same. It's a beast. It is a beast for sure. The only other comparisons I can think of is like a fixed blade. So I've got a Bark River Aurora. I've got the Bark River Classic Drop Point Hunter. And even these guys, it's right in line. I mean, this is a fixed blade that folds, I guess, is better description of it than like a folding knife. Next thing we should do is probably the weigh-in. I'm pretty, disappointed by the weight. I mean, obviously it's huge, but I don't feel like they did much to try to make it a little bit lighter. So 6.25 ounces. It's huge. It's heavy. But I guess you would know that going in, so it's not like a surprise. This doesn't necessarily look like a small knife, I don't think, from a distance, but I don't know. PSA, this thing's huge. All right, so let's get into the dent, the decent, the excellent, the nitpick, and the terrible of this piece of metal. First off in the decent is the fit and finish. This knife was made in Taichung, at the Taichung plant in Taiwan, and they did a really excellent job as far as there are no gaps, everything's aligned properly, the grind is good, or at least even, I should say. It's centered, no scratches or scuffs where anything like that. I mean, as far as like the manufacturer's responsibility of making it and finishing it, they did a stellar job. It did exactly what I think they drew up to achieve. Next thing we're going to talk about is the ergonomics, and it's not like blow your mind ergonomics. It's okay. It's so big that I don't think I have to qualify this for really big hands or anything like that. Obviously, small hands maybe. I mean, I don't know if it'd be downright uncomfortable. It just might be more unwieldy, but it's even though it's kind of blocky, they do a decent job of like subtle things. Like here you have the little groove here, and they took the time to do it in the titanium as well, so that matches up and feels okay. Similar on this side. So when you're looking at it, you're just kind of like, what the heck is going on? But when you hold it, it's like, okay, they're trying their best to make room for your finger. So that makes sense. It does feel the hand in the back. So, as far as filling the hand, I can give it props in that regard. There's no like choil really, but there's a little bit of a divot here, so you can snuggle up next to the blade. It's a little bit awkward in this position because that's so much higher than back here. So I didn't find myself wanting to go into this particular grip, but it's an option if you need to. Usually I was using it just normally, saber grip like normal. And it was fine. It was okay. No major complaints there. Next thing to talk about is the clip. The clip is, at first glance, looks like just a standard Spyderco spoon clip. But then you realize that it's actually curved to kind of match the flow of the handle. I'm guessing they had to do that. They probably wanted to do this one if, for money costs. But, if you're going to take the time to customize a clip, I kind of felt like they could have done something a little bit more exciting. It's competent, just like normal spoon clips are. So I'm putting it in the decent, even though I wish it was something a little bit more interesting. It could have made it sway into the excellent, but that's that. The lanyard hole is out of the way, I guess. It's definitely not offending me, but one thing I did notice is that if you are into lanyard holes, it's especially kind of a small hole. So I think for the people using the like really thick lanyards might have a hard time getting it through. Not a big deal. Obviously, I don't use lanyards, so I personally don't care, but that's one thing to note if you're in the other camp. There is a hidden stop pin. So as far as like the back of the knife, it's a very clean, open, flow-through design. There's just the small back spacer at the end to kind of hold everything together, which is nice. That's good. Cleans it up a bit. I'm sure that it would have looked a little bit more messy if you had the stop pin up here. So yeah, that's good. I always like internal stop pins when it doesn't make the knife worse in any way. Let's go into the excellent. The excellent point here is just the fact that Spyderco did this. I really, really, really like that Spyderco is willing to experiment. They experiment a lot, and so that means that there's going to be times where it's kind of a miss, or maybe more of just like a exhibition of like what they can do, more than like actually filling a particular need in the knife community. I don't know what the need is for this knife, but we'll get into that later. I do just want to give mad props to Spyderco for giving it a go. And, as far as their end of it, of manufacturing the knife and I think keeping true to the design, I think they definitely achieved that, and they, are holding up their end of the bargain as far as the collab's concerned, in my opinion. Let's talk about the nitpicks. First one is the action. So we'll go through it in our normal OCD, open, close, disengage. Open is manageable. I mean, it's the best of the three aspects of action. You do the slow, Sabenza, open. You can also flick it out. When you flick it out, I've realized just because the hole is kind of small for, such a big knife that it is, that getting your fingernail in there is kind of awkward and hard because your finger kind of catches up on that. There's just not enough time to like get your finger out of the way. So what I do is I put the meat of my finger into the hole, and then I don't have to worry about it kind of catching up. This might sound crazy to you, but once you try to do finger, you can do it, but it just feels a little awkward. It's scraping the edges of your nails pretty badly because it's such a small hole. So pro tip, just use the meat of your finger, and I think it'll be a little bit better. The detent isn't particularly strong, so it like opens, but it doesn't feel like it's snapping open. It just feels like you're moving it open. Not to say that the detent, like, I don't think I can. Oh yeah, I can definitely shake it out. Which is to be expected because the blade is gigantic and it's really front heavy, so leverage is working in its favor. So I'm kind of disappointed by the detent because it just sort of moves out. The disengage has some issues. So as far as being able to get in there, I think it's okay. It's not as good as you would think that it is on such a large knife. Usually gives you plenty of room to get in there, and you're not like poking or pinching your finger. And it doesn't do that, but it's kind of bizarre here. You see where the cutout relief on the lock bar is, and it's really far up. It's like halfway into the knife. It's like right in the middle, and I feel like they could have moved it way back here, just to give it a little bit more like room for flexibility. I don't know if it's possible to make the detent hard if you put the relief back here, but it's kind of like double negative in the sense that it's got a lot of lock stick and a lot of tension on the detent on the lock bar, but it still has a weak detent. So it's like I'm willing to put up with kind of a stiff lock bar if the detent is also snappy. But if this is really stiff and it's not strong, then I'm just kind of bummed out all around. There's pretty bad lock stick. Like it's like scratchy. You can hear it, you can feel it. I think both Nick and I tried to fix that. Marker didn't do the trick. Pencil tip didn't really work. It's just gritty. I don't know if that's going to wear out over time, but it's pretty disappointing. Now, as far as the close, you have another issue, and that's the detent ball is really catching up the blade. So even though it's a giant, huge blade and it's heavy, it still does not want to break past that detent ball. You would have to shake it a lot. What it tends to do is either like break past, like I call it reverse detent, where you want, people think, okay, can I explain this? It's really annoying to me because I think people don't understand what they want. So some people are like, yeah, I like it when it stops on the detent ball so it doesn't chop my fingers off. And it's like, okay, well, the problem is that if that is too much tension here, that you have to like push the blade down. And then once it does break that tension, then it's like swinging shut, like the knife should be able to swing open. So then if you're not careful and you don't time that right or do the finger gymnastics to get your finger out of the way, it's not just the weight of the blade that's going to cut into you. It's like more than that because of the detent is snapping it shut. So it's like the worst of both worlds again. It doesn't it doesn't fall on your fingers until you actually are trying to close the dang thing, and then it can catch your fingers, and it's going to be a lot worse than if it just fell. If I can know what to expect, if it just comes down like normal, like a normal freaking knife, then I can anticipate it. Something like the Koenigaris, it falls, but I know exactly that I can catch it. I know when to get my fingers out of the way, and it's not a problem. I know what to expect, to the point to where I can even let it fall, like, when it's horizontally, vertically from your position. So yeah, it sucks. This needs a detent ball ramp, and I don't want to hear it from anybody about, no, it's going to chop my fingers off. No, you're going to be able to just let it, you could catch it right here. You can catch it and then let it glide shut. Or you could do the thing where you let it fall down this way and then let it close. But you're going to have to push it past that detent ball, and it's going to be an abrupt release of tension. And it's really awkward, uncomfortable, and not fun. So all those together, the fidget factor, the action is meh. I don't like it. It's serviceable if you're literally just I'm going to Subbenza open this, and then when I close it, I'm going to do it two-handed. Then that's not a problem. But I don't know why you buying a knife anyway. Anyway, all right, moving on. This sucker's heavy, so we waited. It was 6.25 ounces. That's gigantic. It is super awkward in the pants. It's huge, it's wide, it's extremely thick. Let's get a measurement on the thickness, because I didn't feel comfortable even wearing this to work. It's not counting the clip. You're at almost 0.8 inches, but 0.77. With the clip, you're almost an entire inch. It's just a fatty. That's all there is to it. So weight, size, the back of the knife is very heavy. You just have more material here going on. That clip or the backspacer is heavy. And so it weighs it down in the back. It balances out the weight of the front. It's just an awkward knife. I mean, it looks cool, I guess, if you ask the right person, but in practicality, I think it just makes it a lot more unwieldy, just how the weight is actually distributed. When you're holding it toward the middle, it's even, but any other position, when you're taking it out of your pocket or, trying to open or close it, it's just kind of an awkward distribution of weight. I also don't like how much of the knife sticks out. Not only is it like bright orange calling attention to it, but it's also like, hugely thick. So that sticking out of your pocket, it looks like you have like a chainsaw handle sticking out of your pocket or something. Like, it's so ridiculous. I don't know. Next thing, we'll move into the terrible. I do have a terrible here, and that is the blade shape. Now, I get, if you're looking for like knife art, like I think the normal custom versions of these knives are, they look amazing. Just the lines, the flow, how everything kind of stacks up on top of each other as far as the titanium and all the, if this is mokume and doing bolster type stuff, like you have a lot of different layers, you have a lot of different angles. And so it looks cool, so I think this is a great canvas for custom work. And I understand why people want those, and if you're just blowing money on art, go for it. But at the production level, this is $310. I think this blade, isn't really doing anything for you. Like, it's kind of a short grind, that if you're looking down here, the time it has to taper down is a lot less than even just a PM2. But your blade stock is way, way thick all the way down. I mean, there is no distal taper until like the last 10% of the knife. So your cutting experience is going to vary vastly depending on where on this knife you're using it. And not like it's, I have every type of edge here, so I've always got what I want. It's like I never know what to expect out of the cutting performance of this blade. Cutting food, you'd think you have this big like cleaver or something, but there's no way, like if I have, like this is the table, right? I'm cutting down, right? There's no way for me to like actually get much of the knife down to the the actual like cutting board. Like I can't do it. Like go to the edge here and it's like awkward. It's so lame. I don't have very good stabbing power because it doesn't have much of a tip. It's kind of blunt. So like getting into clamshell is all of a sudden hard. Cutting paper is ridiculous. Cutting tape, I guess you could do, I suppose, but you might cleave whatever's inside your box in half. Like it just, I don't understand what this is for. So I don't mind something looking cool, but if it looks cool and serves a purpose, awesome. If it looks cool and doesn't really serve that much of a purpose, like a practical like reason for existing, like, maybe I'm missing it. This is specifically for chopping into pineapples or coconuts or something. There's cutting open C-sections for seals. Like, how specific is this knife blade? I don't know. But as it stands, all my personal needs, this blade shape is frustrating. It's a pain in the neck to sharpen. It doesn't really do any of the tasks that I want a knife to do even kind of well. Like if it was awesome in one area and then mediocre in others, like maybe that would still work, but it's just like sub mediocre in all areas. So it's terrible. I mean, that's the primary thing that would keep me from buying this knife is it's not really like a knife. It's just something else. I don't know. My conclusion is this is kind of like, it's kind of like the semi-truck drag racing sport, I guess, for lack of a word. Like when you first see a semi-truck that was designed to drag race, it looks so freaking cool, of just like this big, beefy machine that's designed to go fast. It's like when you're 5 and you see a semi-truck and you imagine it, and it's like, how we used to think of Transformers and Optimus Prime, of like, man, that'd be so cool. It's big, it must be fast, And then in reality, those trucks that are semi-trucks retrofitted for drag racing, like when it comes down to using that vehicle for any practical purpose out of semi-truck drag racing, it's a terrible experience. I'm sure that you take that truck and then you're like, okay, we're going to actually haul a trailer, and you're going to do that. And then the guys that retrofitted the truck, they're like, oh no, well actually, the shifter, it can't bear the load, it doesn't have the torque, it can't haul that much weight with this engine and this transmission, and the gas mileage is terrible. You get like half a mile to the gallon. You drive it around town and it can't churn sharply enough to even like churn at an intersection. So that's kind of, you get my point. This looks cool. You think you're getting a $2,000 knife for $300, but it's the only reason the $2,000 knife was worth $2,000 is simply because it was a piece of beautiful art. It's not something that's really designed to help you cut things. It's like The Last Jedi in Star Wars. Okay. If your goal is to just subvert our expectations, that doesn't automatically make it good. In fact, if we're expecting it to be good and you subvert our expectations, then this is what you get. Hope this was helpful to you. I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.